So good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's event. We do have a great conversation kind of in store for you all. So my name is Janae Biagbuna. I am co-founder and CMO of Chezi. And before we jump into today's conversation, I did want to give you guys some background on our platform. So my brother and I, we started Chezi in June of 2020. After a couple of years of us both working in corporate America, I worked for IBM, he worked for Accenture. And we just know what it's like to be Black Nigerian immigrants in the workplace and to really want to find a workplace in an environment where you feel like you belong. Chezi is the Igbo word for reflect, and we believe all companies need to reflect on their DEI strategy in order to better serve its diverse talent. We originally launched as a kind of a glass door for minorities, the idea being that I could find out what it's like to work at Google, Facebook, or any company as a Black woman aged 21 to 30, et cetera. And while we found this to be really impactful, it became challenging for us to continuously gather these stories. So in March of this year, we made a pivot. We knew that we still wanted to help minorities in the workplace. And after countless conversations with DEI professional, ERG leads, we found that we could better serve our target audience by focusing on employee resource groups. We know that employee resource groups are kind of the centerpiece for a lot of corporate DEI strategy, but too often they are under-resourced and underfunded. So ERG leaders are spending way too much time manually gathering data about membership and engagement, and it takes the focus away from activities that actually drive employee retention. So Chezi is now an all-in-one solution designed to help build impactful employee resource groups. We help to easily and seamlessly track membership, events, budget, engagement, so you can focus on what really matters, which is in building inclusive communities. We also have an ERG community, which is a place for ERG leaders and DEI professionals to come together and share best practices, to network, to gain helpful resources. And after this event, I will send out a demo of our solution as well as an invite for you all to join that community and kind of join the conversation. So enough about us. I do want to get started with today's event. I will let our panelists kind of introduce themselves and then we'll jump into today's discussion. At the end, we'll probably give 20 minutes for an audience Q&A. So guys, start thinking of your questions. You can pop them in the chat. And at the end of our discussion, we'll kind of open up the floor to everyone and start to ask questions from the audience. So let's start with our panelists. I will let Aubrey kind of go first and introduce herself.
Thank you so much. So hi, everyone. I'm super excited to be here today. My name is Aubrey Broadwater, and I am the president of Bold Force Atlanta. Bold Force is the Black Employee Resource Group at Salesforce. And I also serve as the manager of equality enablement. I've been at Salesforce for a little over 3 years now, and I am born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. So I currently work in Atlanta as well.
So I'm Dax, if you want to go next.
Sure. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you so much for having me. My name is Dax Firth Houston. Most people call me Dax, D-A-X. I am part of the IT team at ClassPass. And at ClassPass, I am part of our Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Council. And we help facilitate and work with our employee resource groups. And through our employee resource groups, I'm part of the Black Employee Network, AKA BIN, like the Michael Jackson song. And I'm also part of the LGBTQ Teammates, ERG. And yeah, I'm based here in New York City, and just so happy to have the employee resource groups in my organization, and happy to be a driver of those initiatives. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for being here today. And then Ola, we will end with you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ola Datun Idowu. You can call me Ola. I am based in New York as well. And I serve as the events chair for Blackbirds, which is Twitter's employee resource group for Black employees and allies. When I'm not doing that, my full-time job at Twitter is as the entertainment partner manager under our global content partnerships team. And I'm really happy and honored to be here. So I'm excited to get into this conversation.
Yes, so with that being said, let's jump right in. I do have kind of a tough first question. So, you know, each February it seems that companies really start to tout their Black employees. They pull out the posters, they embrace racial equity. And it seems like that only lasts for the 28 days of February, and then they do those activities the next year. So what are some things companies can do to avoid tokenism during this month and ensure that they have meaningful celebrations?
Yeah, I can take this question because it's something that I think about a lot within my role as Bold Force Atlanta president. And one way that we can avoid tokenism is really making sure that our events are FUBU, so for us, by us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Making sure that when we are building out programs or events that we actually have a seat at the table to orchestrate, what exactly do we want the goal of this event to be? How do we want this event to look? But we also want to make sure we don't teeter on the line of like it becoming a burden to us, right? We all have full-time jobs, and running an employee resource group is not our full-time job. And so how do we get strategic around, leveraging our company's resources, making sure that we're involving leadership as well, but also making sure that the events incorporate our voices, our ideas, and everything that our community wants. And then another thing that I think about in regards to tokenism as well is just around, how do we celebrate Blackness beyond February, right? The way that I think a company is serious is when they celebrate Blackness all year long.
Yes.
So how are you celebrating me when it comes to my paycheck, my promotions, my career development, opening up access and opportunity for people like me and others that look like me, right? And so I think that when we think about how do we dispel that narrative around companies, taking advantage of us, putting us on pictures, making us look good, trying to bring people into the company, and they do it just for a short spell. It's about making sure that they're celebrating Blackness beyond February.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to say absolutely. And I think that it also too it's a year-long thing. And I think that needs to be rooted in the pillars of the organization in terms of the diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging initiatives and the ERGs. So it's not just a surprise, like all of a sudden it's January and like, okay, let's connect with all the Black folks in the organization and see what we can do about Black History Month. No, I think that one can go further, or an executive team or a group can go further by making sure that there is still like a connection all throughout the years, all throughout those months, and making sure those executives are involved with the employee resource groups to support initiatives all throughout the year.
Great. So Ola, what do you all have planned for your company's ERG's Black History Month?
So I'm glad you asked. We have, it's been a huge transition coming from doing in-person events in 2020, because February 2020, we were all still in the office, to what our programming looks like now. We focus on 3 pillars, which is belonging, empowerment, and community. And we try to make sure that every event that we do, that we produce, meets those requirements. So this year we're actually still ongoing in terms of planning, but we've been doing a lot. We've been securing a lot of events for wellness and making sure that we have meditation for our employees. We've been doing a lot of pitching for maybe a talent. Hopefully we can get some A-listers that are on the platform to do something specific for Blackbirds. We've been targeting a lot of events with our new platform, our latest platform called Spaces. I don't know if you've heard, but it's an audio opportunity for people to have conversations on the platform, and it's audio only. You don't see faces. And I feel like our talent and influencers on the platform have been really excited about that, because they don't have to do hair and makeup, and we could just use that opportunity to just chat and discuss maybe a TV show or something that's happening in our community. So we've been using and leveraging Spaces for topical conversations. We had a conversation with Jay-Z actually just last year, just at the end of last year when that cowboy movie, which I'm just like blanking out, came out. So yes, The Harder They Fall with him and Regina, and that Spaces lasted like 3 hours. So we found that is a really cool tool to create that, just diverse communication. And we also find that the more reputable those speakers are, like Jay-Z, the more people are going to come in and dive into those type of conversations. So we've been focusing on Spaces. We've been focusing on wellness, and hopefully we have a laundry list of things for 2021, for 2020 next month. So we're excited.
Awesome. Aubrey and Dax, can you share what you all have planned?
Yeah, so for Salesforce and Bold Force Atlanta, our events are really going to be focused around two things: civic engagement and community. I'm sure it's no secret, but it is a huge election year in Georgia, and Black and brown votes matter. And so we want to make sure that our Black History Month events focus on that. So we're going to be doing some events in partnership with New Georgia Project. We also have a wellness event that we are planning with the Black-owned gym, so that all of our employees and allies will have an opportunity to go and get some physical exercise. We also are doing a mixer with Atlanta Black Tech. So this is something that we do with the other Black tech companies, the tech companies and the Black employee resource groups in Atlanta. So we have a partnership with Google, Amazon, Microsoft, IBM, and Twitter. I'm trying to think what else. We have a lot of different companies, but we'll be doing a mixer, and that's a great opportunity for people to just learn about each other from other companies, look at folks who look like them. So yeah, we're really excited for our events, but again, our main events will be focused on civic engagement and just the community.
I love that both of you all have things planned around wellness, because I feel like that's a big conversation within the Black community right now, is just the idea of self-care and self-love. So that's really important. Dax, can you share?
Yeah. Aubrey and Ola, I love what you all are doing. Yeah, so as mentioned earlier, one of the challenges about putting on events during, a pandemic and not having offices open, et cetera, it's definitely, a solve. And what we kind of looked at recently, like last year, what we did was create like a calendar of events that had different weeks, different themes for each week. So for example, we split the month-long content into weekly themes. Like the first week would be Black in Tech, where we would celebrate engineering, designs, companies, apps that were built by Black founders. And that second week would look like activism. So for us being a fitness and wellness company, we fused racial justice basics into a full body and wellness workout, which was really different. Like we were, boxing, and then we would take a break, and then we have a moment to talk about like racial justice. So it was a really interesting mix of things, something I've never done before, where I'm actually like working out, but also getting like, some really great data in terms of like racial justice, et cetera. In that third week, we looked at queer Black pioneers. So we just highlighted and honored Black LGBT trailblazers of the past, present, and future. And I think it's so important to make sure that we are not forgetting about our queer brothers and sisters and everyone in between when we talk about Black history, whether it's Aubrey Lord or James Baldwin, for example. We all have such, they contributed so much, and we definitely can't forget about our Black queer voices. And then for that fourth week, we looked at Black excellence, where we like amplified Black joy and Black culture. We featured like podcasts and artists and authors and music and everything with, pop culture wise. And we just created different calendar events. So we're still working on what we're looking at for next year. We're still looking at what we're looking at for February 2022 for next month. Our organization's actually our company got acquired. So we're now working with our other Black employee network with the other company. So we're still in the works of trying to figure out what we're going to do. But I'm excited. That's another reason why I'm excited to be here too, because we're definitely going to be borrowing some of what Aubrey and Ola said. So
I love that you mentioned Black joy, because that was that for Twitter, Blackbirds, that was like our main, theme in 2020. We just was like, how do we celebrate Black joy? But not also, with Twitter, with the platform, we're celebrating a lot of like celebrities all the time. Like, oh, congratulations, Beyonce just dropped another clothing line, which is like great. Like, I love it. I'm happy for her. But I feel like sometimes we miss our everyday people that we work with, people like you guys, people who are on this chat. And so we wanted to celebrate Black joy by celebrating the wins of our brothers and sisters that are, our colleagues. So I love that that's your new thing, because I think that it really goes far in terms of like longevity conversation.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Agree. So moving forward, how do you incorporate intersectionality into your company's Black History Month celebration? This is kind of a two-part question, but adding to this, we know that the Black community is not a monolith, despite what some people may say. How do you incorporate this concept into your planning for Black History Month?
I'll speak for me. It's funny with intersectionality. It feels like every year, they're called alas, which is the Latinx community at Twitter, and then we have Twitter Faith, and we have so many different ERGs. They are the ones reaching out to us all the time, and they're the ones saying, "Hey, what can we do to be more involved with?" And I think it's the Latinx ERG mostly because there's been a divide between the two. And I think we've recognized that, and we need to bring it to, like, there's too many Afro-Latinas that have been like left out of the conversation. And so Alas have been like very vocal about wanting to connect with us. And even Twitter Asians recently have reached out to us. And so I've gotten a little bit lucky because I haven't had to do so much of the work, but they're coming to us, and we're, figuring it out. And here's another thing I might add. It's a lot of work. I'm sure you two can attest. Like, doing an ERG work and then doing your full-time job, it starts to get overwhelming. And then the pressure of, I hope that Blackbirds can serve our community and bring out some really great programming and, stay cool and Black and hip. Like, it's a lot of pressure, and it's a lot of work. So when a group like Twitter Asians reaching out, like, we want to do something with you guys, I'm like, great, but you got to come up with a brainstorming. I just don't have the capacity. I'm just going to be honest. I don't have the bandwidth to think about what I need to do for Twitter Asians, but I would love for you, and I respect when other ERGs come to us like, hey, we have Yvonne Orji talking about bringing out her book. So Twitter Faith, which is a Christian group, like, they can come to us, like, we can collaborate, and that makes sense. So I definitely want to integrate it into our programming, and I love that we have some opportunities coming up. But I would like to just use this opportunity to say that those other ERGs need to be doing the work to connect to us. And when Pride comes, I know that I'm going to do my due diligence and say, hey guys, like, Twitter Open, like, what can we do to collaborate with you for this month of June?
Yep. One thing that we do within our Atlanta hub at Salesforce is we meet with the other equality group leaders on a monthly or quarterly basis. So just like Ola said, just having that opportunity to bounce ideas off of each other and also share the events that you have coming up. That's the space where, I say, all right, January, we're going to be planning MLK. February, we're going to be focused on Black History Month. That's a space where they can come to me and say, oh, I have an idea for Black History Month. Do you mind if we bring in a veteran-owned vendor to provide coffee for, Black History Month? Or do you mind if we do a talk on, I'm trying to think, Outforce. I think we had a talk one time on Bernard and his relationship with MLK. And so just thinking about different things like that on how to bring in that intersectionality, but also how to work with those other employee resource groups.
Dax, did you have any thoughts on this one? I know that you work with both the LGBTQ plus group as well as the Black group. How do you kind of introduce this idea of intersectionality within your planning?
Yeah. I mean, because I am Black and I identify as gay, it's something that's definitely top of mind for me. And then we also have members who are in our Black Employee Network group who also are identify as queer or non-binary. So it's definitely something that's very important for us. And we look at ways to like communicate the needs of the group, like in terms of just basically like having actually what I was going to say was using like something like Chessie, for example. It allows us to have all of our different groups in one platform. And me, myself, I'm like the ERG lead for our group. So this allowed me to connect with all the different groups. We can look at each other's like calendar events, et cetera. So there's visibility in terms of what is actually going on for the month, et cetera. So I think when you have like a leader or like an ERG lead that you can put in that kind of position that can help facilitate the connection between all the different ERGs. And then when you have a platform like Chezi, that allows it to be a little easier for everyone to kind of just collaborate into one location. So I think that's just a good way of looking at how to tackle that intersectionality issue.
Dax, we appreciate the plug.
You like that little plug?
That was not a paid sponsorship. We appreciate it.
No, it's really a great tool.
Thank you. Okay, so too often Black History Month is kind of handed to the Black employees to plan. As a Black person, it's easy to feel if you don't plan something, nothing will happen. So how can companies get input from their Black employees without making it solely their responsibility?
I think you need to have a timeline. Like every year, Black History Month is always going to be on February. Black Music Month is always going to be in June. Juneteenth is always going to be in June. So like I was saying, like for us as ERG leads, it is a lot of work and it's a lot of pressure and it can be overwhelming. So I think as, you know, if I'm in DIE or if I'm in the diversity and inclusion organization, or if I'm in the marketing team that wants to leverage, maybe Black history and use it for some type of creative content, I am reaching out to our ERG leads way in advance. Like I'm not sending them an email in January when I know that they're already like pressing for finalizations of Black History Month. I think it's just really important for you to just set a schedule and a timeline on how you're going to approach them. You come to a meeting with ideas and you get input from us. So like you say, oh, Blackbirds, we have an idea to create this creative strategy around Black history or around Blackness, or My Black is Beautiful. Can we put some time on your calendar? Sure. Put the time on our calendar. And then you come to us with, these are the concepts that we have. Is this tasteful? Do you like this? Is this going to come across as ignorant? Like that's when you get our feedback. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be involved in the process at all. I'm saying you need to do the work and then you get us for consulting.
I think one of the ways that, and I agree with everything Ola said as well, but I think one of the ways, and we need to see this shift happening across all companies, is equality, equity, diversity, inclusion. It needs to be an integral part of the business, because when it's an integral part of the business, then the burden, and I'm not saying it is a burden, but again, this is not our full-time jobs, but that burden will then fall on the employee resource group. So one thing I'm so grateful for Salesforce for is that we have an Office of Equality, right? And so with equality being one of our core values, with us having this Office of Equality, that work of planning global huge scale programs falls on that business unit. This is what they actually get paid to do, as opposed to us being employee resource group leaders. We might get a little change here and there, but it's not our full-time job. So when you have it be an integral part of the business, it falls on the business to do. And then they can make sure that they're incorporating the community's voices and building out that program, building out that strategy, so that, again, it's not falling all on one person. But I do think it is important, just like Ola said, our input, our voices, our community's voice, it matters in building out this program. Like, I don't want someone that's not a part of the community saying what's best for us to do for Black History Month. I want you to hear it directly from us. I want us to be involved. I want us to have a seat at the table. But at the same time, please recognize that this isn't our sole responsibility. I want allies. I want our business leaders. I want the CEO of the company to be just as invested in MLK and Black History Month and Juneteenth and anything that relates to my community just as much as I am.
I totally agree. So going off that, what is the role of the company's leadership team in Black History Month planning? And in what ways can Black ERGs collaborate with company leadership to create or sponsor company-wide events and initiatives?
Executive sponsors. I mean, that's the simple answer, right? These events that we plan, they're expensive. I won't throw out the numbers. We're being recorded, right? So I'm not going to put Salesforce business out there, but we spend a lot of money between all of our events. And so that money doesn't come from fundraising. That money doesn't come from my pocket. This money comes from our company. And so when leaders ask, how can they be involved? How can they do more? I not only want you to amplify my events, I not only want you to provide access and opportunity, but I also want you to be a financial resource for us, right? It takes money to put on these large scale events that we're doing, especially for the companies that have so many employees. I mean, at Salesforce, we have over 60,000 employees. Just in the Atlanta hub in itself, I have over 600 members of Bold Force Atlanta. I need money to put on events. So when leaders are looking for ways that they can, get involved, finance is a great way. Cut us some money, cut us the check. Another way, again, is to amplify our events, make sure that we have the resources that we need to be able to put on an event successfully.
Yeah, Aubrey, and I think in all points, yeah, you're right on it. I think the route to that is just making sure that there's budgeting for your employee resource group, and making sure that there's funding available, and not just a dollar here or there, just a decent hearty budget to be able to provide content that is enriching and educational.
Right. And that budget comes when equality, when diversity, when employee resource groups are looked at as an integral part of the business. The same way that they look at sales, driving revenue, the same way that they look at marketing for being able to advertise the products of the company, or the same way that they need to look at employee resource groups. We are an integral part of the company. And so when you see us a value, that's where you put your money to. And that's how we have to start making sure that our leaders see us as, and we need them to amplify us as such.
That's a key part of Chesy's messaging, is that employee resource groups, while they're great at building community, they're also great as an employee retention tool. Companies are spending a lot of money to retain, especially diverse talent. So you should be, put your money where your mouth is. Next question, what should companies be mindful of as they prepare for Black History Month events? We've already touched on how it can be kind of a tokenist month, how it can kind of just be for show, and then the next couple of months they forget about it. What are some things that they should be mindful of?
Well, I know within our Bold Force Atlanta meetings, I always tell people that I'm not about the cutesy stuff. I want to actually put on programming that is impactful, and it won't just drive change within the walls of Salesforce and the Black community in Salesforce, but I want to make sure we're impacting the community beyond Salesforce, outside in the Atlanta community. So I think as leaders, we have to be careful that we're not just checking the box and putting on an event because it's cute. We got a little celebrity to show up. We got some pictures. Like, that's fine and dandy, but the reality is we are Black leaders. And our job as Black leaders is to make sure that we are doing right for our community within our company and also outside of our company. So how do we leverage our platform to drive change? Like I said, one of the biggest focus that we're doing within Bold Force Atlanta is around civic engagement. We have these bills currently out. How can we leverage our platform? How can we leverage our voice to make sure that everyone, regardless if they're a Salesforce employee or not, but all Black people have their right to vote, right? And so just thinking about beyond the cutesy stuff, the things that's, gonna make a good photo op, really, exactly, the cloud. I mean, that's cute shit, but it's not really impactful, right? And so how do we make sure that we're leveraging our platform to do good?
Yeah,
that's good stuff.
Yeah, 100%. And I think too, just making sure that your ERGs are not just relevant for Black History Month, but all throughout the year. I mean, yes, there's Black History Month and there's Juneteenth, but let's just not say okay, we're gonna be visible in February and June. Let's just make sure that visibility lasts throughout the entire year. It's not just a 2-month thing; it's a whole year, because we're Black 365 days a year. So why not just go ahead.
No, and there's relevancy to us every month. Every month. Okay, next month is March, Women's History Month. Black women are women. Okay. And then you go into June. Okay, yeah, Black people are gay as well. So there's relevancy, and we are such a dynamic group of people that we intertwine with any conversation or anything that's happening, whether it's Women's History Month or it's Latinx History Month. You're gonna tap into the Black community in every single one of those groups. So since we're relevant, let's continue to have these conversations. Let's continue to be intentional every month, not just Black History Month. And then, you know what, listen, logistically, it is a lot to put on 30 events in 1 month. I'm okay with us spreading that out. In terms of as the person who's planning everything, it's okay to okay, let's tap into what's happening in March. Let's tap into what's happening in April. It's okay for us to expand beyond this month because it makes sense. And then it also helps with bandwidth.
I love that quote, we are relevant every month. I think that's powerful. I think something that all companies should as they look, to February and beyond. So a lot of our audience is still planning their Black History Month celebrations. Do you have any ideas that they can incorporate into those plans? Any speakers or resources that you recommend? Maybe you can pull from past experiences or past celebrations that you all have done. What would you give to our audience?
Yeah, I think planning around the most pressing needs for the community is a good starting point. Like I said, in my lane, I'm thinking of Atlanta and I'm thinking of Georgia, right? So what are the most pressing needs for my community in Atlanta? What are my most pressing needs for my community in Georgia? And how do I build programming off of that? I saw a couple of comments in the chat where people say, well, what if we don't have that budget? What if we don't have that executive support? My answer is to start small, right? Start small and do what you can and continue to allow it to grow, right? Allow people to see what you can do and what you can potentially do if you had more support, if you had more budget, right? So just start somewhere to show something and use that as your leverage to then go back and ask for more the following year or ask for more support the following year. But for anyone that's thinking about, how do I plan Black History Month? I think, the number one place that you start is what is the most pressing need for my community? Because again, as ERG leaders, that's what we should be answering for. That's what we should be solving for. That's what we should be creating for, because it's not about us. It's not about what we want. It's about what our community needs.
Yeah. And I also think too, don't be afraid to reach out to the folks on your team in your organization, the folks who the people of color in your group, in your organization, whether they are Black or Asian or Hispanic or Mexican. I think it's important to just hear the voices of everyone, and then from there kind of listen to what the needs are. And who knows, some of those allies can help, move along and drive Black History Month initiatives. So, if you're just maybe one or two, you've got maybe one or two Black folks, in your organization and you need some help, don't be afraid to ask other folks to help build what you want to be doing for Black History Month. So I know I'm definitely an advocate of serving and asking and especially working with the executive team and making sure that they know that this is something that's important.
Ola, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, no, I think that, with Twitter, I remember they started Blackbirds in 2017, 2018. So it's kind of pretty new. And the way that they did it was the three Black employees that was there and said, let's do a panel and let's and honestly, what they did is they had their own connections. Now, politics is a bitch, but some people have their own connections to talent or influencers or someone who's an expert at the topic that you want to have a conversation on, and they leverage that. And because of the relationships that they had, it was allowing for Blackbirds to grow. People saw that, wait, you guys, I think one of our earliest interviews with Blackbirds is with Chloe and Halle. This is before they were with Beyonce and before, they blew up. But you start off small, and you leverage your own relationships. If you're, in connection with Chimamanda Ngozi and you just happen to know her because she's a friend of your aunt, leverage that. And when people start to see the impact you have over the things that they're not even involved with, they haven't even invested in you yet. Imagine what happens when they invest in you. So yeah, I agree with Aubrey and Dax. It's you start off small and you focus on what you have, what resources you have, and you can use to leverage your organization.
Thank you all. So that comes to the end of our kind of prepared questions, but we do have some questions in the chat. The first being from Jenny Strauss. She says, we don't yet have ERGs planned to, although getting off the ground is a heavy lift. Given that, any suggestions for these companies who are earlier in the journey?
Find an executive sponsor. That is step one in forming an ERG, I would say. Find someone who believes in your mission, who believes in your community, and is willing to advocate for you. Look at them, truly like a sponsor in your own career, right? Have them open up access, have them open up opportunity for you so that you can then leverage their platform to drive whatever mission you want forward.
Do you all have any ideas for companies? So I know like Black ERGs are kind of leading a lot of the company initiatives. So without ERGs, how can they still incorporate Black History Month and Black celebrations into February and beyond?
I think the diversity and inclusion organization, if you don't have an ERG, the diversity and inclusion department should be focusing on how they're tapping into Black History Month. And if they're not, and then you're passionate about it and you're a Black person, you can do something. Really, ERGs is just one person saying, hey, when I first started at Twitter, I was extremely eager and I saw, I was new, I was not in Blackbirds, but I'm Nigerian and it was October and they were doing a Nigerian Independence Day. And I said, we should celebrate Nigerian Independence Day. Very selfishly, I don't know why I did it, but because I was passionate about Nigerian Independence Day, I pitched it, they approved it. I put on this whole event. I didn't ask Blackbirds for anything, but just their support. And it was this really cool event. So if there's one person that is passionate about their idea, that's all you need. All we need is your passion and you pitch it and then go with the wind. And from there, it's just gonna really blossom. So if you're one person in your organization and you don't have an ERG, step up to the plate and suggest it, or suggest a panel, or suggest an event, or suggest an experience that's really gonna be impactful for the Black community and allies.
Yep, I love that, Ola. I mean, it's as simple as putting a calendar invite and just inviting people to it, right? I love what you said, because the reality is we don't need other people to celebrate Black excellence. We don't need other people to do things for our community. We can do it ourselves. And that's something that is free.com. So create a calendar invite all the Black folks tell them to invite all the Black folks or whatever, employee resource group that you want to create. And that's your starting small. That's going to be your leverage to then go to the company and say, hey, look what I did. Look at all this interest. Y'all need to put money behind this. Y'all need to put resources behind this, because this is what your employees need. This is what your employees want.
Yeah, and I think, I was just going to say, and I think, in terms of who do you you're hey, I want to start an ERG in my company. Who do I talk to? Well, think about talking to someone in HR. If you talk to your manager, maybe, and maybe your manager can talk to your executive, just to try to get folks on board to support you. Show that there's a need. I mean, perhaps if you need to look around your organization and see maybe, hey, there's not many people that look like me, bring that up, use that as a talking point, and as well as just, making sure, just use that as a talking point to get you started.
Great. Our next question in the chat. So what are your thoughts on international programming for Black History Month? I lead the ERG program at a global company, and I'm trying to strategize international events and initiatives for the month.
That is. I love that. I'm sorry, Dax, do you want to take this one?
Go for it.
I love this one because Twitter has been extremely meaningful in our approach to, celebrating Blackness in Ghana, because we just opened our office out there. But I'm trying to understand, if you're talking about UK, Dublin, places that are not in Africa, but still has a Black audience, then that's different. But my answer is, I'm just gonna assume you're from, I don't know where you're from. I think it's different, like different answers, if I'm being honest. With, let's say if you're based in the UK, we actually do a lot of cross collaboration with our UK. We even threw in one of our executive chairs is based in the London office. The other one is based in Canada. And we did that purposefully. We want to make sure that we're being inclusive when it comes to our programming and making sure that we're tapping into the culture that's in the UK and tapping into the culture that's, in Canada, because their Black experience might be really different from ours being based in the US. Now, if you are in Africa, we are really trying to do something. We just, and this is our marketing team at Twitter, but they've collaborated with Blackbirds, and we launched this huge campaign in Ghana. You see our billboards everywhere in Ghana for Afrochella. And we connected with the Afrochella founders to put on an activation out there. So we're trying to be very intentional on how we're tapping into our international markets.
Yeah, I love that, Ola, and I'm glad that this is brought up too, because most organizations, or a lot of organizations these days, are global organizations. So, issues in the UK or in Ghana, for example, are quite different than what we experience here in the US. One of the solves that we had was a really great app called Global Citizen. It's linked, I don't know if you might have heard about it through Jon Stewart. They do these concerts in Central Park. But if you download the app, you'll see that there's some really great tools there. One of the tools that I like is the actions tool, where you can actually take action from your phone and you can actually sign petitions, in addition to getting educated about like different facts and data points for marginalized communities throughout the world. And through there, you can make donations, et cetera. So one of the things that we did on Juneteenth last year was take to look at Global Citizen and have folks work through the app and answer some questions and look at some articles and take some action. So that's just an easy way. That's a low cost way of incorporating some action when we're looking at diversity and equity in a global scale.
I love that. Thank you for giving that resource, and I'll include that kind of in the follow-up for our audience. I think that's great. Next question I'm seeing is, my company is pushing me to be the chair of our ERG program. The biggest challenge right now is getting allies excited and wanting to be involved in learning, participating, etc. What suggestions do you have on actions to resolve this without being forceful or making others uncomfortable with harder conversations from a Black perspective in the corporate world?
Well, for me, I don't build anything for allies. I'll just keep it 100. I build it for my community and my community only. And if they want to do the work, because being an ally is a verb, it's not a noun. You actually have to do. And if they don't want to do, then they can stay to the side. So I think that as we look, Dex is laughing, but if you know me, you know that I'm dead ass. Like, I do not build for them. I build for me and my community. And that is a choice that they have to make in order to join it. If they want to learn, if they want to be educated, if they want to do the work to stand beside us, that's something that they have to do. That's nothing that we have to go out and beg or ask, because I don't need them. All I need is me and mine. And so I want to encourage everyone, if you are an employee resource group leader, if you are looking to start something, start with your community first. Like, yes, it's always good to have allies, but your job as an ERG leader is for your community and your community only. And yes, your job is also to educate others and help them on their learning journey to their own education. But at the same time, again, it's a verb. So that means they have to want to do it. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I think that we'll end on that one, because I feel like that's an important reminder. Allyship is a verb. If they don't want to get involved, they don't want to get involved. Next question. What are people's thoughts on having non-Black employees participate in Black History Month company messaging / social media messaging? For an example, what does Black History Month mean to you in an effort to promote allyship?
You
Well, I'm
know,
sure y'all can guess what I think, but I'll let the other panelists say what they want to say first.
this I think about this, and I think about last year, when Black Lives Matter movement was really picking up steam, and I was walking out my front door, and all of a sudden there's like this group of like white folks like chanting Black Lives Matter on my street block, like coming towards me, and I'm going, oh my God, what is happening right now? Like the white folks are showing up, So I think, I think that it's great as far as like allyship is concerned. And we also have to think we're in a work environment as well. So it's like you have to make sure that you're opening the door for everyone. I shared this example earlier, whereas we had like for our Black Employee Network, for our meetings, our cadence was once a month, but like for every other month. So for the first month, we would invite folks who identified as Black. And then for that next month, we would have Black folks who identify as Black, but also allies. So they would be able to, come and share thoughts or whatever. So, it's such a tricky fine line because, for one thing, it's like, this is our space. Like, I want to be in a Zoom call with just Black folks when I can talk about like Black issues without feeling judged or whatever, or have to kind of edit myself. So, it's a tricky solve, and I can't say that we have found a solution, but we did provide at least an option for employees to come in.
Yeah, I think what I like what someone said in the chat, which is that promoting allyship is just creating opportunities for them to lean in, right? And so when it comes to Black History Month marketing, when it comes to anything related to Blackness, the reality is, I know for me, I have to live, breathe, eat, see people that do not look like me every day. Yes. So when it comes to marketing, it is not my job to amplify them. They get amplified because they are a majority all the time. This is my job to amplify people that look like me in my community. So I personally am against amplifying it. And I don't say that with a negative connotation, because I feel like the word against is just very strong. But all I'm saying is, as a leader, I take pride in amplifying my community's voices, their faces, their stories. I think there's something beautiful within that. And it's not a space to have to amplify others just because we want to conform to the norm. So my answer is no, and I encourage other people to also stand on that platform. But again, that does not mean that we have to close the door to our allies, because I do want them to lean in, but I want it to be on them, not me having to pull them in and say, oh, let me get a little soundbite for you for Black History Month. I'm good. I don't need you. I don't need you. I need my community. I need their voices, and I need their stories.
100% plus one. I mean, I'm even struggling with, okay, so we are, we send out swag to our community every month. If you're a Blackbird member, you're going to receive it, and you could be a white Blackbird member. And this year our swag is extremely Black. Like, we wanted to add do-rag, scarves, like we wanted to make it really about us. And I'm so excited, but I'm so nervous. Like, I do not want to see people on Twitter that are not Black, hey, I got my Blackbird swag, and wearing a bonnet, and you're not like that. I'm really concerned about that. But I don't want us to prevent us from being us because of other people that are non-Black that are part. No, like, we're gonna do us, and we're gonna stand by being dedicated to the Black community. So I am a +1 on that. If you identify with being Black, you can be in the marketing video. If you are Afro-Latina, yes, you can be in the video. If you are Black in Africa, obviously, like if you're Black here, if you're half Black, yes. But if you're not Black, I think it might not be.
Right.
Not
exactly.
Not have one.
I think the takeaway is like, don't be afraid to create Black spaces. Like, you don't include allies in it. It's okay to have something dedicated to us, because that's not the majority.
And I think they're understanding. That's the thing. Like, I think if you tell like your diversity and inclusion lead, or if you're telling the white person that you're talking, like, I think they would understand that. I really do.
Yeah. So I think this is going to be our last question. So given that we are in a pandemic, how are you maintaining like ERG member engagement, specifically around your Black History Month events and celebrations? How are you taking the pandemic into consideration?
It's really tough, like, because we are a very in-person type of organization, and we love food. Like we bring food into every event we do, and Black people love food, so they're gonna show up. Everybody loves food, but it's been a challenge because we have to be very creative. And listen, these virtual events are getting overwhelmingly boring. Like I understand that you do not want to join into it, so we have to be creative. And so, you know, one thing that we did was Versus was huge in 2020, and we was just like, let's create our own Versus, and it's called Love to Hear It. And we literally will have two people playing music, and we will theme it like, okay, you know, 90s hip hop. And it was a huge success. Like we did it around Christmas and invited Spotify Black Employee Network, Facebook, and all these other ERGs. We made it a battle. We even invited Jack Dorsey, our CEO at the time, to speak. And it was a whole moment. We had about 500 people tune in. So it's really important for us to be creative in how we're doing things and how we're channeling and bringing in the organization to just have like excitement over the programming we do. But also, like Aubrey talks about, we need to not only think about the fun, cutesy things, but what are we doing that's impacting our communities? And we've been noticing that, I think last year or the year before, financial literacy was like a big conversation because people were talking about, you know, the investments and stock and everything. So we were like, how can we be around that conversation? Like what can we do to pull that into our community so we're learning? And so that's one of the events that we're now going to do for next month. We need to talk about financial literacy, and we need to talk about how we can have an impact in that area. So it's having a listening ear, like what's happening in society that people are already engaged in, and let's bring it in here.
The Versus is a great idea. I feel like our audience should steal that one. Aubrey, Dax, anything to add?
Yeah, we, like Ola said, it's been hard, especially within Bold Force Atlanta. I feel like we're such a close-knit group. And so we've just had to, you know, basically we've had to leverage the virtual platform, you know, whether that's having the virtual parties. We also had a similar idea where we did Versus, except we did Atlanta versus New York. So we did something with our Bold Force New York chapter. We did one Dirty South versus everybody. So we've been thinking of creative ways to bring in the community. And I don't know about you all, but last year after the murder of George Floyd, there was just a spike in hiring of Black folks. And so I personally had probably like over 200 members join Bold Force Atlanta. And so they joined during COVID, meaning that they had never met me in person or anyone on my leadership team or really any other Bold Force members. So thinking about how do I keep them engaged? How do I let them know that we have a sense of community in this white space? And so it has been hard, but we have been able to gradually start going back in person. I know on Monday, if we have an MLK event in Atlanta that will be in person, although it is all outdoor, it's something we're doing. We've put COVID protocols in place. So it's also about figuring out what are some ways that we can still be in person, but be really safe about it, but also still leveraging our virtual platforms and opportunities. So.
Awesome. So I will actually end it there. I'll give our panelists kind of the last words, tell our audience where they can find you, how they can connect with you. If you all are looking for speakers for your Black History Month celebrations, I'm sure our panelists are open to, you know, joining your conversations, facilitating a panel event, whatever you need. So I will kind of let them close it out.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for allowing me to be here today. As y'all can tell, I like to talk and I like to run my mouth, but please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to help anyone out as they are thinking about Black History Month or anything as it relates to being Black and being authentically you in the workplace. So if I had to tell anybody anything leaving this call is to be you and make sure that you're being you for your community and doing what's best for the community. Don't worry about anybody else. Just sit in your Black excellence and know that that is enough. So.
I love that, Aubrey. I feel like I want to say +1 to what she said, but also I want to add something that's not that profound. It's really just, can you take care of yourself? Can you make sure that your mental health is okay? Can you make sure that you are focusing on you? I think a lot of the times as Black professionals, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to give back and do so much because we love being, I feel like most of us love being Black. It's a privilege to be Black. It's an honor. It's fun. And, you know, a lot of the ideas we have is just dope ideas. Look, we're just dope individuals. So much so that when people see our creativity, they need more from us. They ask more of us, and then it becomes too much. So I just want to say, during this period that we're going to go dive into Black History Month, take care of yourself and make sure that you're focusing on you first and everyone else is afterwards. And continue to be your best self, because we love to see it, not just us in the community, but people outside, like, you know, and that's why they're intrigued, because they love the work that we're doing. They love our ideas, they love our dopeness, and they want to be behind that vision, and you are the vision. So continue to do your work, but take care of yourself, prioritize yourself.
Awesome.
And connect with me. I put all my links in there, my LinkedIn and my Twitter.
Yeah, +1 to what Aubrey and Ola said. Yeah, you know, you all are here enjoying this conversation because there's something that's important for you, whether, you know, it's ERG work or diversity, equity, inclusion work. There's that passion there, and I think it's so important to continue to carry the torch. You know, we stand on the shoulders of many, and it's important for us to continue to do the fight and to do the work. And even if we're the only ones in the room or the only ones that care, it is so important because we can make an impact on so many people, especially in our workplace. So you can follow me on social media. My handle is Daxfurth, DAXFURTH. You can also look for me on LinkedIn. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, especially when it comes to just starting off your ERGs. You're like, hey, where do I go? Where do I start? I'm happy to be a resource and point you in the right direction.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. This was so impactful. I'm looking at the chat and everyone is saying this is great. It was impactful. It was such a meaningful session. So we appreciate your time. And just a reminder to our audience, I will send out a recording of this because I know some people had some trouble getting in, as well as an invite to our ERG community. And then I'll also send out our panelist info. So thank you all. Have a great rest of your Wednesday.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Everyone, bye.